Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good day. Before we get started with today's video, I want to thank everybody. We've reached 18,100 subscribers, and like I've said in past videos, this just means so much to me. And also remind you that you can become a member to the channel now for just 99 cents. In January 2023, the MVP, VIP, and Pro levels will all disappear, and all those perks will transfer over to the eBuzz Central member for just 99 cents. It's a good way to support the channel you like, and also the content that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. The video I'm going to do today is going to be pretty interesting. Microsoft has done a lot over the past year, in my personal opinion, attacking the open source community, whether it be Linux distributions or open source applications that you can run on Windows. What we're going to cover today is a few of those things that they've done over the past year and just kind of remind everybody exactly what we're dealing with when we talk about Microsoft. And I do want to give an update. A couple months ago, I talked about the Organization for Fairness in Computing. I should have it launched and ready to go on February 1st. That's when the website's going to be ready to drop, and I will give you more information in upcoming videos about that. But what we're going to do today is go over, and I'm going to point out to you some of the things that Microsoft is doing to try to cripple the open source community when they're actually a wolf in sheep's clothing going, hey, we love open source, when really all their business practices at present show that they're not. So sit back, relax, and enjoy all the information. About a month ago, Windows 11 got a big security upgrade. But one of the biggest requirements is they want you to completely reinstall your operating system. Why? Because they have something called Smart App Control, which will completely change the way applications run on your operating system. Now, hear me out. If you don't believe me, I'm going to lay a lot of information on you in this video. Don't just take my word for it. Go look the information up yourself. It's right there for everybody to see, and it's completely blatant what Microsoft is doing. And this is why I use Linux. This is why we call it free as in freedom. And if you come down here, it lets you know right off the bat, Windows 11 users can now look forward to a slew of security updates going forward, including a new feature called Smart App Control. What is Smart App Control, you may ask yourself? Well, Microsoft is going to use code signing along with AI in the Microsoft Cloud. And if they deem that application dangerous, or if they deem that application unworthy of being on Windows, you won't be able to use the application. Hear me again. If they deem this application unworthy, you will not be able to use it on Windows 11. Smart App Control will ship on new devices with Windows 11 installed. Devices running previous versions of Windows 11 will have to be reset and have a clean Windows 11 install for it to be taking advantage of. Are you all hearing this? They're going to make you wipe your system, reset it, reinstall it with the newest version of Windows 11, and then they're going to be able to dictate to you what applications you can or cannot use. Now, what you will have to do is if you install it, you do have the choice to disable it. But here's the kicker. If you want to re-enable it, you will have to reinstall Windows 11 again. Isn't this great? Windows 11 making computing easier, right? No, they're not. They're wanting more control over the operating system. They're wanting more control over your equipment that you've bought, hardware that you have bought. They want complete and utter control over not only what you put on it, but what they approve to run on it. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Go look it up. It's right there for everybody to see. Next, a lot of people had issues installing Windows 11 on computers as new as 2.5 years ago. It would tell you your computer isn't compliant. You know why? Because it doesn't have the TPM 2.0 on your PC. Those of us in the Linux community know what that is. We know that you can take Rufus and create a Windows 11 boot drive without TPM and be able to install it on older hardware. But here's the kicker, guys. 80% of the people out there don't know this. So what are they forced to do? They can't update or upgrade, so they're stuck on Windows 10. That eventually will run out of support, I believe, in the year 2025, when they want to force everybody to Windows 11, when at that time the Smart App Control will be embedded into Windows 11, and then they will still have the ability to dictate what applications you run on your system. Now, a lot of you guys will be watching this video and go, what is TPM? Let's start with Secure Boot. Every system that you get nowadays with Windows 10 or Windows 11 on it has Secure Boot. That means it ships with these digitized keys for Windows only, nothing else. which means the system at that point just wants to boot Windows and there's no other option. Then we come to TPM, which is the Trusted Platform Module. This is where security keys are stored. It also stores security information. For example, if you have a TPM, Windows 10's Credential Storage Manager will store your credentials in the TPM, rather than storing those credentials directly on the hard drive with an encryption key tied to your Windows password. Now, the TPM, what happens if you boot an operating system and that system is not the same operating system as the one that you are booting regularly, it won't hand the keys over for the one operating system. Now, I know this may sound strange, but what this basically does is, let's say you wanted to try out Linux. You boot into Linux, you've got secure boot and TPM, everything's working correctly. You go into Linux, you can't access your hard drive on your Windows machine because it's locked down. It's encrypted and locked because the TPM did not release the serial keys to your Linux operating system. So why is it called the Trusted Platform Module? Well, here's where the kicker comes in. Microsoft doesn't want to store your encryption or serialization keys on your hard drive. Where do they put it? They put it on the Microsoft cloud. Now remember, guys, it's not a cloud. It's Microsoft's computer. They keep that on their computer. They don't give it to you. They don't encrypt it and put it on your hard drive so you can have access. But they have access to that key. They got it from the Trusted Platform Module. You don't have it, but they have it. On a computer that you spent money on the computer that you bought, on a computer that you think is yours. It's not. Microsoft controls it. Are you listening to me? If you use Windows 10, Windows 11, this is what you're doing. Microsoft owns your computer. They're going to have all control of the firmware keys over your system and soon have all control over what applications you'll be able to run on that system. So in any case, no matter how you cut it, slice it, dice it about Microsoft, you are a slave to them. Your computer's a slave to them, and so are you. Microsoft is going to dictate how you're going to use your system, and Microsoft is going to dictate what you use on your system. Like I said earlier, don't believe me? Look it up. Now, furthering what I'm saying here, Tumblr, if you remember back in 2018, had an issue, and there was a security issue with the application where it accidentally let some pornography through, I do believe. But Apple immediately removed that app from their phones. Now, I don't agree with what happened with Tumblr. I do understand there are data breaches. I do understand that sometimes bad things can happen. But at the same time, you should, as a company, be able to have a fail-safe in line so you can tell Apple, okay, we're shutting the app down for 24 hours. We're going to find the problem and we're going to fix it. Apple said, no, we're just removing the application. Not only did they remove the application from the store, they removed it from every single device it was on. Now, you're probably saying, good, I had a friend that used to be on the Parler app. If you remember, this was a big app. A lot of Donald Trump fans followed it, this and that and the other. You may not agree with what they said on the app, and there may have been issues with the app. Google, Apple, you name it, everywhere the app was available, not only did they pull it from their stores, they deleted it from the devices they were on. Now, here's my question. If that's my device, I downloaded that application. I want to use that application, but I can't use that application. You know why? Because Apple and Google decided and dictated to me what I was going to have on my phone. If you do not think this is where Microsoft is leading, you are completely fooled. So you ask me that question again. Why would I leave Microsoft and go to Linux? Why would I leave Windows and go to Linux? It's pretty self-explanatory, I would think. The bottom line is this. We are close to a day to where all the applications you're going to run on Windows 11 is going to come from the Microsoft Store. If you don't believe me, sit back and look at the way of Google and Apple. It's self-explanatory. You can see where this industry is going. They're pointing you in the direction of smart app control. We're not going to let any apps we don't trust. So they're going to end up saying the only apps that are trusted come from the Microsoft Store. They're going to force developers to put those apps on their store. Why would Microsoft do that, you say? Because it's working very handsomely for Google and Google Chrome on the Chromebooks. They've almost completely cut out side loading on Chromebooks and on Android phones. They've almost got all of our hardware locked down. If you do not see this and do not understand this, you buy hardware that you don't own. And you ask me again, why do you run Linux? Why do I run Linux? Because I don't want to be caught in this situation where I'm stuck with Apple, Google, or Microsoft. If you guys disagree with me, if you guys think I've went off the deep end and I don't know what I'm talking about, please drop it in the comments below. Now, if you haven't watched my previous video, I suggest you zip on over and take a look at it first. It'll clear a lot of what we're getting ready to talk about up. I go over things like the new Smart App Control in Windows 11. I go over the TPM 2.0. I go over Secure Boot and just kind of show you how things are starting to head toward that lockdown direction. Now, what surprised me with a lot of the comments I received is that people seem to forget that you don't lose your freedom all at once. You lose it a little bit at a time. A little bit here, a little bit there, and before you know it, it's all gone. And you don't have freedom anymore. Now, the first comment I want to go over is it basically states, rubbish. You own your computer. You require a license to use Windows. That's it. You don't own Windows. You rent the software via a license. As for TPM and Secure Boot, these have been available for years. You just not been forced to use these services. Check your facts before posting this rubbish. Now, I don't think what I went over was rubbish. I think what I was pointing out was definitely important to the user. And here's what I'm going to try to say. I'm going to make an analogy here real quick, so just bear with me. Let's say you own this car. You bought the car, but they tell you the motor isn't yours. The motor's ours. We can let you put it in your car, and we're going to let you drive it around. We're going to let you do things with it. But if you ever do one thing that we don't agree with or goes against the contract that we have with you, that motor's going to stop working. Sure, you own the car. The motor quits working. What good's the car now? I had a lot of people tell me that. Of course you own your computer. You're just paying a license to use Windows. And I informed them, no, I'm not paying a license to use Windows because I use Linux. Not only do I own my PC, but I own the operating system that's on my PC. And I don't have to worry about waking up one morning and the owner of my operating system going, he's doing something I don't agree with, so I'm just going to flip a switch. His computer's no good now. He can't use it anymore. What I'm telling people to do is, you've got to investigate Linux. You've got to take a look at Linux. So that way you know if Windows does do that to you, you've got somewhere to go and you're not trapped. You're not caught into the trap that is Microsoft. And then another one of the comments I received, I think the question you would ask for is, do you own your operating system? Of course I own my hardware. It's physically next to me. I can touch it and even throw it out the window if I want. And with this, decide not to own the device anymore. The operating system is another story. Yes, you can look at it differently in front of you, but it still can be unreachable for you. How it is in most cases. I agree. In most cases, you're right. But with Linux, you don't have to worry about that. It falls back to my previous comment and previous analogy. If you own something, but the inner part of that something is controlled by somebody else, do you really own that piece of hardware? And I had thousands of people tell me, you don't own your phone. You're not complaining about your phone. Yes, I am. I de-Google every phone I ever get. I wipe it completely free of Google, turn tracking off. I do everything I can to shut it down because I don't want them following me everywhere. To give you a good example, I brought up in my previous videos how if you're using Google or Microsoft, they look at everything that you put on their cloud. And remember, there's no such thing as a cloud. It's another person's computer. They control that. They read it. They look at it. Every picture, every email. Have you ever gotten an email in Google and then it had like a date, doctor's appointment, 2 p.m., Tuesday, May 50th, or whatever date it might be. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, your phone reminds you of that one day? How is that? It's because it scans every email you get, scans every picture you get. Just like Facebook logs every single messenger message you sent. They eat your data. They love and thrive on your data. And they live to have control over that device that's in your hand. Now, there was another comment placed on this comment. It says, correct, you own your hardware. As for software, you rent/lease the software, you never own it. You buy a limited time license for the life of your current hardware, but you can change some hardware with the same license, but change too much, you may need to apply for a new license. I'm going to stop right there. So you go out. Let's say you do this. You go out and you buy yourself a new car. Okay? You get that car, you take it home, it's your car. So you go out and you decide, I want to put some new wheels on it. So you put new wheels on it. You go and tint the windows. You tint those windows. Oh, maybe I can do something. Let me change the exhaust pipes. I want it to sound louder. You go change the exhaust pipes. You pay to have them exhaust pipes changed. You get in the car, turn the key, it doesn't start. Well, why does your car not start? Because you broke your user agreement for your car. You can't drive it anymore because you did this. You changed some hardware. It won't work anymore. When are people going to understand that electronics, Microsoft, Google, Apple, the only time you have any kind of issues with these people is when you try to take control of something you paid for? I mean, Apple, you specifically have to have a certain kind of SSD or a certain kind of RAM. Just can't bust it open and do what you need to do. Don't believe me? Check out Louis Rossmann. Look at everything he's going through with right to repair. I mean, everybody, you need to open your eyes. You think it's something small now. It's going to be something major in the future. You're going to be spending money, but never owning anything. Why cannot people grasp that? I don't understand it. And then it comes down here at the end of it. No software is yours. You don't own DVD, Blu-rays, or CDs. You have a license to hold on to that product format. But if you require a new format, you purchase a new license. This is where I disagree with him. Every piece of software that I run, I own, except for maybe DaVinci Resolve. Everything else I use on my systems, I own. And it even tells me that in the GNU license. I own it. I can even change it. If I can make it better, I have every right to. I can do whatever I want with that piece of hardware. It just requires that I share. If you want to change the code and do something else with it, you got to keep the code free so somebody else can do something with it. That's all it states. So, yeah, my software is mine. Yours isn't yours because you're used to it. You're programmed that way. You're locked into that. As far as, I think this is a bad analogy, DVDs, Blu-rays, or CDs, you don't buy a license for those. You buy a copy of a movie. No, you don't own it. You can't go out and re-edit that movie and sell it. No, it's not open source. We know that. And we expect that when we go out and buy DVDs, Blu-rays, and CDs. So that's, in my opinion, a pretty ignorant comparison. Now, in the third comment, he said, maybe they can finally clean their store with this, which is full of garbage. He's obviously talking about the Microsoft Store, and I've pointed out the Microsoft Store in the past, and he's quite right. It is full of garbage. It is trash. Most of everything that's in there is copies of other people's work. I've seen GIMP in there. You can go download GIMP. It's free and open source, and somebody's taken it and put it on that site, and they're charging for it. So, I mean, definitely, Microsoft needs to get their store in check. But I think that's a lot of what they got going on in the future. I believe they're headed to a lockdown environment where every application you're going to get is going to come directly from their store. Don't believe me? Look at whatever phone you have in your hand right now, whether it's Google or Apple. The TPM thing with this encryption key is not new. They do the same thing with BitLocker. It's a good thing they do it this way for people who don't know any better. Do you think everybody that uses a computer system is completely and utterly ignorant? Let me put it this way. Have you ever opened an email account? I know you all have. You've got a username and a password. Can you remember that password? Or how do you get in your email? Or are you one of those that just leave it to auto enter your password? Ooh, that's a mistake, but that's something else I can touch another day. Do you remember to get up and go to work in the morning? Do you remember when the day's over to actually go home? Do you remember how to get home, or do you have to have somebody tell you how to get home? We're not completely and utterly ignorant. If you open up a new computer and they have a nice little book in there and it says right on the front of the book, very important, please read first, this machine has TPM or it has BitLocker. Here's your encryption key. Put this up in a safe place, put it in a safe, put it in your sock drawer, wherever you might keep it. We're not completely and utterly ignorant. And then what he says next is great. Yes, they take over your computer because the security hole is your behavior on your computer. Security hole is your behavior on your computer. So what he is saying here is, we're going to control you because you're not trustworthy enough to use your own equipment. So that's like saying, okay, when you get up to go to work in the morning, when you go outside to get in your car, somebody comes over and takes your keys out of your hand and says, just get on the other side. I'll get you to work. Don't worry about it. Total stranger. What if a total stranger did that to you? Would you give him the keys to your car? Would you let him take you to work? I doubt it. That is a complete and utter ignorant statement. That's my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, please put it in the comments below. And I'm going to show that that statement that he just issued right there is completely ignorant. I have people every day that tell me they will unplug the internet and do whatever they have to do and jump through whatever hoops they have to not have a Microsoft account to use that computer. And it gets done on a daily basis. But here's where the problem comes in. And that problem is this. What if you have a laptop or a desktop that comes from the factory with BitLocker enabled? What happens then? Well, this comment right here clears it up and lets you know exactly what happens. Something happened yesterday that left me completely dumbfounded. I dislike Windows, but until yesterday I was okay using it for some very specific things I needed. I am finished with that now. Bad word. That's going to be blurred out. You can kind of figure out what the word was yourself. A friend of mine updated Windows, rebooted the computer, and guess what? Enter BitLocker key. Windows decided to encrypt her entire C drive. She never had a Microsoft account, so she can't recover the key by login. Microsoft basically destroyed all of her data with a single update, and there is absolutely nothing you can do. Now, guys, you're probably sitting there going, whatever, this don't happen. I'm telling you, it happens. I get comments all the time about it happening. It happens on a daily basis. And if you don't have that Microsoft account, that key is not backed up on their cloud, Microsoft computer. It's not backed up there, so how do you get it? I thought this was like a 1 in a million kind of thing. She was just very unlucky. But no, if you search online, there are a ton of people with posts saying, Windows suddenly asking for my BitLocker key. Even Chris Titus has a video about it, saying he came across 3 or 4 laptops that did this and basically bricked the laptop. Are you blank serious? It's basically official ransomware from Microsoft. Guys, I know you think I'm a Linux fanboy. You watch my channel, I cover Linux, I tell you how much I like Linux. But if we don't put our eyes in front of us and see exactly what direction Microsoft is trying to take us, the same direction Google's already headed, the same direction Apple's already headed, and you want to sit there and put down comments saying, whatever, you're a paranoid freak, this is a stupid video, why did you even post it? It's happening. It happens every day. It's happening to good people that own their equipment, but not their operating system. It's people that have fell into the Microsoft hole. But I am going to say this. I said it in the previous video. Microsoft can kiss my you-know-what. I own my computer. Do you own yours? I've had people that come on and said, yes, I run Linux. I own my computer. The only people that 100% truly own their hardware are those that run Linux or BSD. That's the only people. If you have Windows or Mac, you do not own your hardware. They dictate to you what that hardware can do. And if you fool around with that hardware, change anything in it, they lock it down. And they tell you, guess what? Give us this key that we have on our cloud, on our computer, and then we will unlock your system for you. Until then, you're just out of luck. If you disagree with anything that I've said in this video, or maybe you do agree, please drop a comment below. I love hearing from you guys, and I do my best to try to respond to all of you. UEFI. You guys are probably really familiar with it. We didn't used to have to deal with it, but now we do. Used to give us a little bit of a problem when we wanted to install Linux, but it doesn't anymore. I know everybody out there is going to say this is not a major thing, but, you know, it's just another way that things have changed on computers. And basically what EFI's practices and data formats do is mirror those of Microsoft Windows. If you don't believe me, go look it up. So let's go on ahead and move to what is TPM, the Trusted Platform Module. It's used by services like BitLocker and Windows Hello. It was just another way of kind of putting something into your hardware to make you, you know, rely on Microsoft to have your encryption keys and pretty much control things on your system when you should really have control of those yourself. But as commenters have said in my previous videos, hey, most people don't know what to do with that stuff anyway. It's okay to trust it with Microsoft. So let's go on another one here, guys. Let's meet Microsoft Pluton. Has anybody heard about this? And if you have, please drop your comments below and let me know what you think about Microsoft Pluton. Now, the role of the Windows PC and trust in technology are more important than ever as our device keeps us connected and productive across work and life. What this is, guys, it's going to be integrated. Listen to this. It's going to be completely integrated into the chips. In upcoming Intel, Qualcomm, and AMD processors, there's going to be a new chip built into the CPU silicon die. And it's co-developed by Microsoft and AMD, and it's called Pluton. Now, I'm not going to read you what they got over here on Microsoft to let you know how Microsoft is going to sugarcoat this thing, but I'm going to go over some quick things here real quick and just kind of update you on what the Pluton processor is and what does it mean for us in the BSD and Linux community. This new chip was announced way back in 2020. However, details of what it was actually capable of and what it actually means for the Windows ecosystem were kept very vague. Now with Pluton rolling out in some AMD chips, it's possible for us to kind of put together this information now. So what is inside Pluton? Well, let's go ahead and do this, and I'm going to break it down and try to explain it to where you can understand it. It's going to have the full TPM 2.0 implementation. It's going to have SHAC, which is Secure Hardware Cryptography Key implementation. It's going to have DICE, which is your Device Identifier Composition Engine. And it's going to have the Robust Internet of Things, which is the RIOT. Not the IoT, but the RIOT. Specification compliance. Now, this specification was developed by Microsoft and was announced almost 7 years ago. It was way back in 2016. However, beside these functions, Pluton implements the full breadth of security improvements that Microsoft used to only have on Windows 10 secured core PC systems. If you're not sure what those systems are, zip on over and take a look at it. But some of the things that it entails is Dynamic Root of Trust for Measurement, or the DRTM, System Management Mode, which whether you can edit your device guard, regular computers have long had the SMM, but it's still going to be implemented right into it. Memory Access Protection, Kernel DMA Protection, and Hypervisor Code Integrity. So basically what I gave you there was a lot of acronyms. But what does it mean really in the big picture of things? In a nutshell, Microsoft believes they need to exercise more control over PC security than they previously have. This came up with Windows 11, which infamously, if you all know out there, required 8th gen or newer CPUs, TPM 2.0, and secure boot capability. Those of us know in the Linux community, you can download Rufus, get rid of all of those requirements, and keep going, but who really wants to install Windows anymore? However, while Microsoft was terrible at defining why certain CPUs made the cut and others didn't, a lot like the Zen 1, if you look back on that, that didn't make any sense. And also Windows 11 used virtualization-based security, or VBS, to isolate parts of system memory from the rest of the system. VPS includes an optional feature called Memory Integrity. That's the more user-friendly name for calling Hypervisor Protection Code Integrity, or HVCI. HVCI can be enabled on Windows 10's PCs that don't have driver incompatibility issues, but older computers will incur a significant performance penalty because their processors don't support mode-based execution control. Now, I know you're probably sitting there going, what does this really mean for me? Well, with all the acronyms that I've thrown at you, Microsoft originally developed Pluton for the Xbox, but also for the Azure Sphere. When they developed the Azure Sphere chip for secure Internet of Things devices, they designed it to be compliant with 7 properties of highly secure devices, which is your hardware-based root of trust, small trust computing base, defense in depth, compartmentalization, certificate-based authentication, renewable security, and failure reporting. Basically, they wanted to take all control of your system. If you don't believe me, think about it like this. If I've got a computer and I install Windows on it, and I'm using Windows, and I'm there with my hardware, why does Microsoft want so much control of not just my software, but now they want control of my hardware? So, I know you guys are saying, what does this have to do with Linux? What does this have to do with me as a Linux user or a BSD user?
So we put all of this together. What are the effects on me when Pluton arrives? Pay attention to what I'm saying here, people. You will no longer be able to install Linux with Pluton enabled unless the Microsoft third-party UEFI certificate is enabled in your UEFI firmware. I'm going to repeat that. You will no longer be able to install Linux with Pluton enabled unless the Microsoft third-party UEFI certificate is enabled in your UEFI firmware. Pluton will integrate with Windows Update for system firmware, potentially allowing for some forms of drivers to be updated, as well as potentially having downgrade prevention, which means if it breaks your system and you want to downgrade it, you're SOL. You're out of luck. You can't do anything about it. So basically, guys, what I'm telling you as a Linux user or a BSD user, at the end of the day, I would avoid buying any hardware that come with the Pluton built into it. Just my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have more information on what you believe the Pluton processor might be used for in Microsoft's little world, please let me know that also in the comments below.
Now, if you look back at Steve Ballmer's reign at Microsoft, there's not much to be really happy about. And what a lot of people do forget is that 21 years ago, Steve Ballmer said Linux is a cancer. It attaches itself to an intellectual property sense to everything it touches. That's what he said. Linux is a cancer. But over the last 20 years, the PR people for Microsoft have kind of, cozied up to us Linux users and said, hey, we're here for you and we want to make things easier for you, and basically just lying to us. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, I'm going to start with my first example today. Now, the first thing I want to go over is a lot of you out there have heard of Rufus. Rufus is a great tool. There's a lot of people that use Ventoy instead, or maybe a Balena etcher. But Rufus, for me, has always given me the ability to do whatever I needed to do, whether it be a Linux distro or a Windows ISO. Now, the reason I say that is because when Windows came out with all the TPM protection and blocking the ability for some people to put Windows 11 on older hardware, I did a video that basically showed you how you could go into Rufus, disable the TPM requirement, and be able to install Windows on a laptop or a desktop. Well, Microsoft has blocked the ability for Rufus to download the ISO. And if you go over and actually do some of your own research, you'll see that the developers have found a way around the block and have released an update. But Microsoft is going to continually block this because they don't want people downloading the Windows ISO, then being able to block the TPM requirements, because that is essential to what Microsoft at present is trying to do. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, let me show you this. Recently, Microsoft has started blocking UEFI bootloaders, enabling a Windows Secure Boot bypass. Now, what is their reasoning for this? What are they telling people their main concern is with this? If you scroll down in the story, it says some signed third-party bootloaders for the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface could allow attackers to execute unauthorized code in an early stage of the boot process before the operating system loads. That's what they're using it. This is something that you need for the security of your computer. This is what they're telling people. You need this. You need to be able to verify this operating system, and you need to be able to verify the code that it's starting with. Now, my question is how much control does Microsoft want over your software and hardware? They already have the software market. Now they're going after the hardware. They want to control every ability you have to do anything you want with your hardware. They kind of want to lock it down. And here's the beauty of it. Microsoft can do this and require manufacturers and dictate to manufacturers what they want these systems to look like and be like before they'll give them a license for Windows. If you do not believe me, please go out there and do the research yourself. It is a step-by-step process of how Microsoft is trying to not control just your software, but the hardware. And it's going to get to a point to where you can't even boot a Linux distro. Don't believe what I'm saying? Check this out. And I'm asking everybody that's watching this video, if you don't believe what I'm saying, go do your own research. It's out there. You just have to investigate. Now, right now, AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton won't boot Linux. Did you hear what I just said? AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton
won't boot Linux. Matthew Garrett, a Linux security specialist, wanted to analyze the implementation of the Microsoft Pluton on the Ryzen Pro Zen 3 Plus processor. Ultimately, this didn't go very well, as he couldn't get Linux to actually install to a completion. And if you go down here, he says, as it seems, the firmware doesn't trust any other bootloaders besides Microsoft's, or any drivers using Microsoft third-party UEFI CA key. In other words, trying to install any other OS that's not Windows won't work. Okay? They've already got the software. Now they're going after your hardware. And they're going to dictate to the hardware manufacturers exactly what the hardware is going to require, or they can't get the Windows license. Now, this just doesn't go towards, hey, you need to have this specific chip. You need to have the Pluton. It's beyond that. Now, Microsoft's control over the hardware just doesn't stop with the internals. It also is going to be a requirement for laptop cameras now. So those of you who go out and buy budget laptops that don't have a camera, or it's got a low quality camera, or you just want to get you a decent little laptop that you can do stuff on. I got laptops that I use that I never even turn the camera on, because I'll find something that's affordable, something that's easier to pay for, and something that's easy to put a decent Linux distribution on and move forward. But you're going to have a harder time finding those more affordable laptops now because of this. Starting in 2023, Windows 11 will require new laptops to have a front webcam. But that's just not the main part of it. Forward-facing cameras will be mandatory, while rear-facings will be optional. And of course, it doesn't apply to desktop PCs. And they're going to have specific resolution requirements. They'll have to have a resolution of high definition or better, auto exposure, and auto white balance. So if you're a manufacturer out there making affordable laptops, or maybe lower spec laptops that a lot of people use to put Linux or something like that on, you're going to have to add these cameras to it. It's going to increase the cost of your production, and then of course it's going to increase the cost to the consumer. I've been preaching this on my channel for a long time. Microsoft wants control over the software, they want the control over the hardware, and they also want to make sure that when you buy that hardware, the only operating system they want you to run is Windows, period. Now, I know we're going to work on this and probably find workarounds in the near future, but the main point of this is showing you exactly Microsoft's steps at what they're doing. They have held our hand for the last 10 years. We love Linux. Linux is part of us. We're going to start our cloud, Azure Cloud. We're going to have Linux involved. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We love the Linux community. And then they start requiring hardware and chips that won't boot a Linux distribution.
Well, I didn't know in making those videos that I would get certain people that would come out of the woodwork and say that my coverage of what Microsoft is doing is kind of demeaning. It's kind of rude, for lack of a better word. And by saying this, I'm going to show you one of the recent comments, which isn't the only comment I've received, but it's one that really gets down to the bread and butter of what this viewer is trying to say. Now, this comment was left on my eBuzz Shut the F Up, and this is when I got pushback. What I did is I covered a video basically letting the Linux community know the things that Microsoft is trying to do hardware-wise with their hardware partners to kind of lock their hardware down to not be able to use Linux. And people would come back and say, you know, there's workarounds. And my biggest fear is what happens when they flip that switch and there's not a workaround. And at the end of the video, I basically stated, okay, I'm going to lay off Microsoft a while, get back to covering Linux, because I know that people out there want to know more about Linux, and the Microsoft bashing might have been getting overwhelming. Well, I had a lot of viewers that actually said they liked me covering the Microsoft and they liked having that information, and it helped them make decisions in the future on what kind of hardware they're going to support and buy. Well, this viewer said, backing away from bashing Windows is the best thing you have done. Everybody is different, and their likes and dislikes are different too. Just because people that use Windows does not make them any different than people that use Linux. Now, I want to stop right there because I never said it made you different. I never said that people that use Windows are oddballs. People that use Windows are losers. I never said that. And that's what he's kind of putting in front of people right now. I have never attacked anybody for using the software
that they feel comfortable with. I've even stated in my Linux videos that if you feel comfortable with Google Chrome, use it until you can get more comfortable with a different browser that doesn't track you. I've said that. I've also said whatever operating system and whatever software works for you, use it. But if you're using it, here are the things that operating system or that company's doing in the background with your information and your privacy. I like to bring that above board and tell people. He continues by saying, I would like to go on and on, but with the likes of you, it is a waste of time. Now, right here, he takes a shot at me. He basically states that I am wired one way, and that's the only way I am, and I won't have a discussion or I won't have an educated thought process of talking about a specific comment or something I've said in the past. I am quite opposite of that. I am very open to speak to people. What I want people to know is if you're using Google, you're using Microsoft, you're using Apple, these companies collect your information. They collect what you do online. They put this all together, and it almost is like when the FBI goes after trying to track down a serial killer. They've got a profile. In that profile, they can pretty much match that to who they believe the suspect is. All these companies have a profile on you. They know where you like to shop. They know what bank you use. They know your daily routine. They know where you travel, especially if you're carrying a phone. They know where you are anytime, day or night. They can tell you whether you're in a car, whether you're in a bus, whether you're at home, what you're watching, what you're searching. They track you, and they got this profile on you, and they sell that to advertisers. And they advertise to you with these inundated ads constantly on your hardware, whether it be a PC or whether it be a laptop or whether it be your mobile phone in your pocket. They have this profile on you. And Google takes it a step further by collecting all this information and saving it on servers. Microsoft does the same thing. Well, I responded to this comment by saying, with people the likes of me, and when did I bash people that use Windows? I've never done that, but I will point out that I bash Microsoft and their business practices and try to enlighten people as to exactly what it costs you to be a member of the Windows flock, whether it be security, privacy, or your identity as a whole, because all you are is a number to them that they can market to advertisers. I say repeatedly on my channel, if you've watched any of my videos, use what makes your job easier. That's what I responded. Well, he come back. I'm not misled. I use Linux way more than I do Windows. Those of us that do use Windows feel degraded when you bash Microsoft. Now, let me ask you something. I'm going to be quite honest here. If you feel degraded when you see a video of me bashing Microsoft, is that my fault or is that your fault because you know deep down inside what Microsoft is doing to you, but you refuse to acknowledge it and you refuse to get away from it? I don't know how me, speaking about a company, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, collecting your data ruthlessly can degrade you. How is that degrading you? How is that telling you, you know what, because you use Microsoft, you're less of a person? I've never said that. I've always said, use what makes you happy. Now, if what I say about Microsoft or what I say about Google or what I say about Apple, and I'm speaking the truth, I back it up in my videos, I show you exactly the documentation, and I show you the articles that cover these things. If I point those out to you and you feel degraded, it's because you know what I'm saying in the video is true and you refuse to remove yourself from that situation. That's my opinion. That's the way I feel. And then he follows it up and finishes it. If you hate Microsoft so much, then please keep it to yourself. No, I'm not going to. I hate their business practices. If Microsoft come out tomorrow and said, we're making Windows open source, we're removing all the telemetry that's involved with it, you can have it free to use, we're not tracking you, we're not collecting any information, we're not shoving advertisements down your neck, I wouldn't have a problem with them. What I'm pointing out is the fact that all of these services that you use, whether it be Microsoft, Google, Apple, that are free and you just can't wean yourself off of because, quite frankly, some people need it for their jobs. But then there are other people that are just too lazy to even try to use something different that is more free.
Now, I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. What I'm saying is you're used to that. What I'm saying is once you bow down to that and say, I love all these services and I'm not leaving, you have to understand that your privacy, your security, your freedom in that ecosystem is gone. You are now profiled, and you're going to be profiled from that company with whether it be advertisements or new products they want to serve you or tracking or whatever. If you accept that and you say, I can deal with that because I want to use this, and then you see a video of me saying these things are wrong and Microsoft needs to change them, and you feel demeaned or degraded in any way, that's your problem. That's not mine. If you don't like my videos, I've said it in the past, don't watch them. But I will continue to speak the truth, and I will always let people know when Microsoft or Google or Apple is in some way infringing on their rights, whether it be freedom, security, whatever it might be. I will cover it. And if you don't like it, then don't watch my channel. I won't miss you.
Now, to just touch base on a little bit of history, most of us are familiar with GitHub. A lot of the things that we use, a lot of the development that we see gets done on GitHub. I don't know how many times I'll go and look at something and it'll say, hey, go check out our GitHub page, and we'll go over and check it out. That's where the developer does most of their work. What GitHub is, in and of itself, is an internet hosting service for software development and version control using Git. It provides the distributed version control of Git plus access control, bug tracking, software feature requests, task management, continuous integration. It's really a great tool. It's something that I believe for open source developers is probably priceless. You can go there and keep everything under one controlled area and be able to make the changes and keep people up to date and abreast of things that are going on with it. There was only one problem. On June 4th, 2018, Microsoft bought it. And this was the news release they sent out. Microsoft acquired GitHub, a popular code repository service used by many developers and large companies, for $7.5 billion in stock. The deal, which heightened Microsoft's focus on open source development, aimed to increase enterprise use of GitHub and bring Microsoft's developer tools and services to new audiences. Now, when I read this originally, when it said it heightened Microsoft's focus on open source development, I called BS. Because my first thing was, Microsoft is going to go in, they're going to find open source code that's better than their own code, and they're going to utilize it. But then I also thought to myself, well, they can't. They have to actually use the GNU licensing or something. Something's going to protect that code. It has to. There's no way Microsoft can blatantly go in and just steal code and use it if it's better than their code and get away with it. That's what I thought at the time. But what if Microsoft isn't the one stealing the code? What if Microsoft isn't the one utilizing the code? So then what would we be looking at? We wouldn't be looking at somebody actually going in and going, hey, this code is better than ours, let's use it. What is a way around that? What is a way that we can steal the code, but at the same time not be stealing the code, but then we can use it if we don't get caught? Well, I got the answer to that. Everybody say hi to OpenAI. OpenAI is a great tool. It's a tool that can go in and look through code and create things and pretty much do everything that you want it to do. Artificial intelligence has come a long way, and it just keeps getting more and more, shall we say, scary. And when I say scary, I mean, what are we really utilizing artificial intelligence for? Are we using it to better the world? Are we using it to make jobs easier? Or are we just going to use it the way most people use new technology? You can remember when the internet first came out. The internet first came out, it was a great tool. But immediately you're going to have the underbelly of people who want to come out and find a way to use the internet for their gain, for their financial gain, for their professional gain. They're going to find a way to utilize any new tool for the wrong. That's my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, put it in the comments below. Just like GitHub. GitHub, years ago, was a great place for developers to go and set everything up. Now that it's owned by Microsoft, it really has become a development platform for end-to-end security and automation of tools and pushing an enterprise feel. What does that mean to us? Doesn't really mean anything, but they're pushing that enterprise. That's what Microsoft does. We're going to push that enterprise. But what if we partner with OpenAI? What can we do then? Well, here's the answer to that, guys. Microsoft, GitHub, and OpenAI are being sued for allegedly violating copyright law by reproducing open source code by using the AI. So, Microsoft isn't stealing the code, but the AI can steal it, and the AI can utilize it. But here's the big deal. This suit could be a huge impact on the wider world of artificial intelligence. Now, we're just going to read a few things here. Microsoft, its subsidiary GitHub, and its business partner OpenAI, business partner, see, they're working together, have been targeted in a proposed class action lawsuit alleging that the company's creation of AI-powered coding assistant GitHub Copilot relies on software piracy on an unprecedented scale. Now, this was what I was worried about back in 2018 when Microsoft bought GitHub, that they were just going to eat up good code and they were going to reproduce it and make it their own and pretty much cut all developers out. But Microsoft didn't do it. Microsoft used AI to do it. The case is only in its earliest stages, but could have a huge effect on the broader world of AI, where companies are making fortunes training software on copyrighted, protected data. Copilot, which was unveiled by Microsoft-owned GitHub in June of 2021, is trained on public repositories of code scraped from the web, many of which are published with licenses that require anyone reusing the code to credit its creators. Copilot has been found to regurgitate long sections of licensed code without providing credit, prompting this lawsuit that accuses companies of violating copyright law on a massive scale. We are challenging the legality of GitHub Copilot, said programmer lawyer Matthew Butterick, who filed the lawsuit with help of San Francisco-based Joseph Saveri law firm in a press statement. This is the first step in what will be a long journey. As far as we know, this is the first class action case in the U.S. challenging the training and output of AI systems. It will not be the last. AI systems are not exempt from the law. Those who create and operate these systems must remain accountable. Now, this is what they're going to try to fight in court, because they're going to say, well, the AI created it. We didn't take it. We didn't steal it, but the AI used it. They're going to find a way to ease themselves in and out of this without having any repercussions. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, it said the lawsuit, which was filed last Friday, is in its early stages. In particular, the court has not certified the proposed class of programmers who have allegedly been harmed. But Butterick and Manfredi and Zipparoli of the Joseph Saveri law firm said they expect the case to have an impact on the wider world of generative AI. Microsoft and OpenAI are far from alone in scraping copyrighted material from the web to train AI systems for profit. Many text-to-image AI, like the open-source program Stable Diffusion, were created in exactly the same way. So what this is saying is everybody's doing it, AI is doing it, but because AI is doing it, nobody should be held accountable. And if you come down some more, you can actually read some interviews. What I'll do is I'm going to link this Verge article in my description below, because I think a lot of this information needs to be put out there. What I'm bringing to everybody's attention is that we use GitHub, Microsoft owns GitHub, and GitHub is quickly becoming an unsafe place if you want your code protected. If you disagree with that, please let me know in the comments below. But like I've said in the past, Microsoft has to be stopped. Whether they're using themselves, whether they're using AI, whatever they're using to basically steal code needs to be stopped. We've been saying it for years. Google steals all your information. Microsoft steals your information. A new report out yesterday said Apple's not as safe as it says it is because it's been phoning home a lot more. And now Microsoft is using AI to go through GitHub and steal code. It is what it is. Nothing's going to change until something major happens. Does Microsoft, GitHub, and OpenAI need to be dragged in front of Congress again for an antitrust hearing? Do they need to answer for what they've done? I believe they do. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.
Please do me a favor before you leave today. Please like, subscribe, or follow my channel. The more likes I get keeps me in YouTube's algorithm, which means the information you just saw in this video, if it was helpful to you, it can be helpful to somebody else. And subscribe. Doesn't cost anything. And if you end up not liking me, you can always unsubscribe.
If you like the channel and enjoy the videos that we are producing, we are on 3 separate platforms: YouTube, Utreon, and Odyssey. And you can become members on all 3. On YouTube, it's only 99 cents. On Utreon, it's $2.99. And on Odyssey, it's $4. You can also buy us a cup of coffee, maybe go over to PayPal and throw us a donation, or go to Patreon and become a patron to the channel. All those links will be in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you in the next video.